everyone and welcome back to my channel Beth Chats Books. So today is going to be a recap of some of the books that I've read in between my prize reading. So it's the 6th of June now and I'm planning to start the semi-finals Booktube prize reading. So I have 4 out of the 6 books to read. I've already read The Innocents by Michael Crummy in the octafinals, which was the first round I judged. And I've already read Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, which I read a month or so back, maybe a month or 2 months back. And I came back from Budapest, I took the book home with me and I read it quite shortly after returning around March and April time. I think I probably read it before I started the quarterfinals reading. So anyway, I've read those 2. So there's only 4 books that I need to read by July 31st. So I think I've got plenty of time. But these are my in-between reads, so I thought I would kind of wrap them up with you now, as otherwise it would be a very long time before I do so. So I managed to read Never Greener by Ruth Jones. So I was lent this from my colleague at work who said it was a really good book. So this is a fiction set in contemporary times that focuses on a character called Kate, who is an actress. And I think about 17 years previously to when the book starts, she had an affair with a married man called Callum. But in the present day, she's married and has a child, and then through some interesting circumstances, she comes to meet Callum again, and the affair becomes re-sparked, reignited. And so it deliberates along the lines of a lot of questions about, is the grass always greener on the other side? When you get your second chance, would you go for it? Callum is stayed with his wife, even though 17 years ago she found out about the affair. And it's kind of their second chance to do something differently, and the way that that works out. So I was kind of happy with the ending because I think it became a lot more realistic than some of these contemporary romances usually do. It's not my favourite genre, so I didn't love this book, but it was fast-paced enough that after reading quite a lot of heavy non-fiction, it almost was a bit of a palate-cleansing, guilty pleasure read to kind of get me through. But I didn't really enjoy the character of Kate. She was the most fleshed out. So her husband and Callum's wife, Belinda and Matt, they weren't very fleshed out characters at all. They were very shadowy and surface, which is a bit of a shame because you didn't really care as much about what was going on as you should have done. So Kate and Callum were more fleshed out, but Kate was quite egocentric. She didn't really care about how her actions were affecting other people, how she was destroying her own marriage and somebody else's for a second time. And she seemed a bit all over the place, so I found her really hard to connect with. And Callum was just a very spineless individual and kind of kept going with whatever Kate suggested, which was very, very frustrating to read about. So I gave this book just a middle of the road 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't written bad. I know that there's a new book by Ruth Jones that is out now. I've seen it around Goodreads. I probably won't be getting around to reading it just because contemporary romances aren't really my go-to thing. I think this second book that has come out is more about familial relationships than necessarily romance, but I expected this to be a bit more steamy and action-packed, and it was just surface level for me. So I think for the right reader it would be really good, and I'm not disputing that she's actually quite a good writer, Ruth Jones. I know obviously she's famous for co-writing Gavin and Stacey. She's a very good actress. She can make quite well fleshed out realistic characters, but these particular characters in the novel, I didn't care for them or what was going to happen to them. So this was just a debut, so she's obviously got plenty of time to work on those skills, and I have read bits of fiction from other celebrities as such. I've read The Keeper by Graham Norton and I think that was just a bit better than this, but she's definitely a good writer and I think she's got good potential for the right reader. And then the next book that I read was The Suspect by Fiona Barton. Now this is a thriller. I actually really enjoyed this and I didn't think that I would because, again, I'm a bit critical of the thriller genre because it tends to get a little bit tropey for me. So usually they're good in between reads, or if I don't want to think too much when I read, I pick up a thriller. because the character development in a thriller isn't really as good as other books, particularly literary fiction, where characters get a lot more fleshed out and you get more time with them. I think in a thriller they serve the purpose because thrillers are more plot driven than character development kind of novels, which is fine. And every so often, obviously, you want that kind of read just to allow your palate to be cleansed and to have a little bit of cheap escapism. So I was going into this just expecting it to be an okay read. My nana had lent it to me and said she really enjoyed it, and I was pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed this one. So it's set in 2014 and follows Alex and Rosie, two girls that live in the UK who have just finished their A-levels, and they're doing a gap year to Thailand, kind of a gap year / holiday celebration. So Alex is planning to go off to college or university, and so they are keeping in touch with their parents via phone calls. And then the day of her results, Alex is meant to be ringing her parents to find out her results, because Rosie's not as academic as Alex and she's not planning to go to uni, but for Alex this was a really big deal and she wants her parents to read her results out over the phone. But they don't hear anything from her. And then this develops into a police investigation that they are missing because the parents said it's very unlike them to not get in contact with them. So then we follow... There are three different perspectives. It's the parents of Alex, particularly the mother of Alex. Then we have Kate, who's a journalist who wants to cover the story, who's also got a son who went out to Thailand, who she hasn't spoken to in a year. And then we have the police investigator, D.I. Sharps, I want to say his name was. And they go over to Thailand, and then we find the bodies of Rosie and Alex in the hostel that they were living in, where there's been a fire. But then we find out that they died before the fire. So I'm not going to say any more than that, but obviously it takes you on a whirlwind adventure. Now what's quite interesting is this is book 3 by Fiona Barton. There's 2 other books that she did that are kind of around the theme of so this is the suspect. And then I think one's the mother or the child or something like that, and another one. So they're all independent stories, but I think Kate, the journalist, and D.I. Sharps have kind of had overlap in the other stories with different investigations. So they're kind of loosely a series. So I probably would at some point go back to the other 2 and see. This is the newest one, and a lot of people in the Goodreads comments have said that this is more fleshed out and better than the other 2. But she's impressed me enough that I am intrigued enough to maybe go back to the other 2 at some point and read them. But it was really fast paced. I loved the different perspectives because that kind of cut through the thriller and gave it a little bit more of a literary edge, because we got to see the characters from different perspectives. And I liked the interweaving story of Kate the journalist becoming embroiled in this story due to her connection to her son. The story fleshes itself out in really interesting ways and avenues that many thriller writers don't go down. I think it was structured quite well. It wasn't as obvious as other thrillers I've read. Some thrillers become really obvious who the killer is or what's going on, and there's moments in it where your eye roll because tropes are just being constantly reused and recycled. But this was a refreshing take on a thriller, so I gave this 4 out of 5 stars because I actually really enjoyed this and was pleasantly surprised. I've literally just finished this book this afternoon, and that is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, and I am so conflicted and frustrated and a little bit disappointed. So I've ended up giving this 2.5/3 stars. So the first half of this book I really enjoyed. Maybe even the first 2/3 of this book I really enjoyed. The world building was fun, I really invested, and I thought, yes, this is my kind of fantasy because it's predominantly book related, and as a book nerd I love anything to do with libraries and books and discovering books and all that kind of jazz. But then the last third of this book, when we get to the Diary of Kat, who's Zachary's friend on the surface, and the last main bulk of Zachary's adventure in the Underland Starless Sea, I was completely out. I was out. I was done. This was over for me. And so that negative last third has really affected the positive 2/3. So this is set in Brooklyn, New York, and Zachary goes to his local library and finds a book that's not barcoded in the library that he takes out. He finds out it was donated by some individual who had a library archive collection. And he takes it back and he reads it, and he's shocked to find out that he's mentioned in that book. And then from there he has some kind of magical realism fantasy that takes him to the Starless Sea, which is kind of a space below New York, but below ground in an undisclosed geographical location, because there's these magical doors that people go through to access it, and that could be anywhere in the world. So as a child he didn't open one of these doors, and then he finds an opportunity to open one and enter this universe, and it's got a starless sea right underneath the heart of the building, and it's got lots of imagery of swords and keys and bees and books, and underneath the ground in the starless sea there's just alcoves and shelves full of books and stories that people can find. So there's a lot of repetition of stories in books and finding books, and that was really playful and fun for me, and I really enjoyed that. But what happened with this is almost like the author ran out of steam of how to structure this adventure and how to keep it within its realms. So the concept was really good, the execution was just really poor for me. When we started getting the diary of Kat, who's his friend from New York, it just didn't gel with me. This story kept repeating this idea that there needs to be an ending to a story, but it was dragging out the ending, which was ironic. Then there was this character Dorian, who there was meant to be some kind of romance between him and Zachary, which I loved, that this is kind of young adult and there is a gay romance in there plus, but it didn't have that element of will they won't they, because for most of the novel Dorian was either unconscious or completely lost from Zachary, and they were on a quest to find each other, so there was no real romantic development there, which was frustrating because it was almost like a tease that just didn't play out well. And then things just started getting a little bit ludicrous for me, where you have to obviously suspend your disbelief when you start a fantasy novel, but halfway through the book asking you, well, the last third of the book say, asking you to do it again is a bit excessive for me. I was on board for so many elements of this fantasy that then when it tried to push me further into getting on board with things that were just a bit sloppy in terms of structure and how they were written, I just wasn't on board for that. So I'm quite disappointed because I really wanted to love this, but it just didn't live up in the last third, and many books I've read recently haven't done that. They've been consistent all the way through, whether it's been a novel or a non-fiction, so I really had to drop at some serious points for that, unfortunately. So I might eventually get to The Night Circus, but a lot of people said that was better than The Night Circus, so I don't know whether I should give her another try as an author, but there is that one. The very last one that I'm reading, I can't actually show you it because it's on my iPad and I'm filming on my iPad, so that is Say Nothing by Raden Keefe. So this was one of the non-fiction picks for the Booktube prize, and it has gone through to the semi-finals, but it's not in my round because I'm not doing non-fiction this round, and it didn't turn up in my quarterfinals round either, but so many people have said how amazing it is, and I saw so many more reviews of it this time round, and so I decided to see whether it was at the library, because I've bought quite a few non-fiction titles, which you will see in a video soon, which I'm going to do of all the books that I have bought recently, but I'm waiting for all of them to come so that I can do a fully rounded video of that instead of just two little sporadic ones. So I bought a lot of non-fiction based on the Booktube prize titles that really intrigued me. Some of them have made it through to the semi-finals and some haven't, but that one I was tempted and I ummed and ahed whether to buy it, and then I thought, oh, let's just see for intrigue whether it's the library, because I haven't actually read any ebooks or audiobooks through the library and I really want to get into that. So I saw it was there as an ebook and it was also there as an audiobook, but I thought I'd try ebooks first because I don't really read many ebooks, whereas I have occasionally read audiobooks on Audible. So I thought I would give that a try, and I am about 100 pages into it, really enjoying it. It's narrative non-fiction, it's really engaging, it's teaching me a lot because Ireland is quite a complex narrative to explain to people who don't live in Ireland and don't understand. So I know basic Irish history, I know about the issue between wanting to belong to the United Kingdom and wanting to be independent, and I know about the tension between Catholics and Protestants, but this is educating me in a really easy way. It's storytelling, but it's also really informative and it's making that distinction very clear. Whereas previously I've read history books on different topics and on this topic, and they are very convoluted on this topic and they don't make the distinctions clear, which can be quite complicated because Irish history is so intertwined with different things going on at the same time. Whereas this isn't confusing me, it's really engaging me and it's fantastic. And then I've just realised that I have another book that I didn't mention, which is Pride and Prejudice, which I listened to on the BBC Sounds app because it's a free audiobook at the moment. So I was reading that in between reading my non-fiction, so that's why I forgot it was there. But I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars, really enjoyed it. I think I would like to read it in physical copy at some point because I think some things were lost on me, because I usually listen to the audiobook when I'm either on a walk or doing my 10 to 15 minutes walk from my house to work in between the day. So that could be first thing in the morning, then when I come back for a lunch break, and then at the end of the day. So if I'm distracted, then I had to keep going back and replaying bits. But I love Austen's humour. This is only the second Austen book I've read. I read Mansfield Park, but that was at university years ago. So I really want to get into Austen because so many people love her. And I just watched Friday Reads by Barton and found out that Pride and Prejudice is his favourite novel, which is very exciting to know that. So I've only given it 4 out of 5 stars because I don't think I fully got the Austen magic, but loved that it was a free audiobook that BBC Sounds offered. So it's still there. I think it's there for another year. So if you want to utilise that, go ahead. I'll link it down below. And really, really enjoyed it. So yeah. So with Patrick Raden Keefe, I'm still reading that. So obviously there's no rating for that. But I'll link all these books down below. But I just thought I would give you this little interlude. That's this video for now. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.